What is up, everybody? This is Mike Lang, the Virgil of the Intelligent Hoodlums, and welcome to our brand new hustle. This is AI on AI 1996. Our first episode is called The Crossover, and we're going to be asking the question, or answering the question, or attempting to answer the question. What is artificial intelligence, and how educators use it? How could they use it effectively this school year? As always, I am joined with the homie Webbs. Say what's up to the people, Webbs.
Hey.
And this concept was kind of born out of playing around. I got some inspiration from my own life. And so the reason why this is AI on AI, when I was a high school freshman, Allen Iverson was a freshman at Georgetown University. I was playing basketball a lot and whatnot. And it was just like this guy's swag, his style, his mystique was a little different. He was fearless. He was, just a tenacious player. And then 1996, he becomes the very first pick of the NBA draft. And when I start thinking about basketball in my life, it's before AI and it's after AI. Like Allen Iverson kind of really revolutionized what it meant to be a basketball player. You saw kids with the braids started becoming a thing. Headbands in public a lot. The tattoo culture amongst especially African American youth really exploded, where this was like an accepted thing. He kind of added the style to basketball. He didn't redefine the game. He didn't change how the game was played. Basketball is still basketball. I mean, still putting the ball into the hoop, but he made it. He had a certain mystique to it. And we're really going to explore artificial intelligence in the same manner that the game existed before AI. So education existed before artificial intelligence, but became this like mainstream kind of, very utilized and integrated process. But like, how does education look like in this age of artificial intelligence and machine learning? And what can educators embrace, and what might educators have a little bit of temerity about? And we're here with one of the best people to talk about this, Webbs. She is a software developer. She has used AI and machine learning to build projects and stuff. And it's always dope when you have friends that know stuff. So when you have questions, you can go ask them about things and they can kind of give you the nitty gritty. And so we're going to kind of start tonight. We're going to have a two-part type situation. We're going to talk to Webbs a little bit. If you want to shoot questions to Webbs, by all means, do so. We're on YouTube right now. We're on Facebook right now. We're on Twitch right now as well. So if you've got questions, shoot those questions out. But Webbs is going to really, I'm going to ask her some questions, allow us to expound. In the second half of our program tonight, we're going to really look at one particular tool that you could utilize tomorrow to do some very dope stuff in your classroom. So, Webbs, are you ready?
Yeah, I mean, as I'll ever be, I suppose.
Oh, indeed. Oh, indeed. So, when we talk about, people say AI, what exactly does that mean? Because I think that's a lot of the misconceptions behind this particular concept. People say AI, and I'm afraid of it, or it's going to take over the world, or it's Skynet, or it's something I'm going to keep in my classroom. Explain to us what that means.
Yeah. I wish I had. With the there's one of those laws. I forget what it is. Any technology sufficiently advanced enough is indistinguishable from magic. Yeah, I forget whose law that is, but let me first preface by saying everything I'm gonna say is with the target demographic of folks who are not at all familiar with it. So in the off chance that for some reason there is a software developer out there who has decided to tune in, you're not the audience, my dude. So if I hear the old well, actually, yes, in the same way that we start concepts kind of broadly and then get more specific as people learn more about them, I'm going to start out pretty broad. So it may seem like AI is magic, but it's not really. In the way that if you think about say a spell check, right? You probably can kind of conceptualize of spell check is, hey, you spelled this word, it looks kind of similar to this word, is this what you really meant? And then sometimes if you get your word really far off, like even spell check is like, I don't know what you're talking about. And that's a pretty like input output kind of thing. With AI, it's, hey, I'm going to give you a bunch of examples and I want you to make your best guess at what you think the answer I want is. And I'm going to tell you if your answer is right or if it's wrong. And you do that millions of times. And eventually you train an algorithm, is what they call it. Like you train an algorithm to be able to answer that question specifically. So, like, one of the basic starter projects that a lot of people do with machine learning, which is kind of like a subset of AI, is being able to identify numbers. And the way that it identifies, that an algorithm learns to identify numbers, is by breaking the picture of a number down into, like, say, 9 different quadrants. And so if you think about the shapes of the numbers 0 through 9, they all have curves in different places, they're spiky in different places. And so basically what it does is it knows that, hey, if it's curvy at the top, it might be a 2, it might be a 6, it might be a 9. It's probably not a 7, it's probably not a 5. It might be a 3 depending on how it's written out. But it can kind of start to narrow down what those numbers are. And then it gets another piece of information and it finds out, like, oh, it's also, let's say, curvy at the back. Okay, then it's either a 6 or a 3 is pretty much what you're down to if it's curvy at the back. So now there are 2 options, right? One more piece of information, we can probably eliminate one or the other, and now we have our answer. And that's basically what machine learning and AI does. Is like, you're given a bunch of examples, it learns different features about those examples, and then outputs based on what you're asking it to do. In some ways, it works really great when it comes to like prompting you what the next couple words might be in your email, or when you're writing a paper. Sometimes it's absolutely very rough. For example, for work, I was designing a Copilot bot. I had to turn off all the AI features because it was trying to be overly ambitious and it kept breaking the bot. It wouldn't work. So, and we'll probably get into that more later about the pros and cons, but a very simple definition is, hey, I'm going to give you a bunch of examples. You guess what you think the right answer is, and I'm going to tell you if it's right or not. And then once we practice that enough, you're going to know like what I want you to do. And you do that in a bunch of different situations, and you get machine learning algorithms that will be able to predict what kinds of flowers there are, or that's a picture of your dog and not someone else's dog, and that kind of a thing.
Interesting. The examples really helped illuminate that a lot in my mind. So that's dope. So that being the case, you use some examples. You said spell check, for example, right? Or essentially the like predictive text when you're writing an essay or a paper or whatever. So is AI, is this concept a new one? Is this brand new? It was 22 months ago, or whenever it was, when OpenAI popped up and said, hey, we've got, ChatGPT. Was that the first time AI has been seen on the world?
No, actually, I think the term AI was coined somewhere around like the mid 50s, I want to say, like 1950s, like back in the 1900s, when we were born. And and even before that, like the Turing test, which is this idea of like, can you test to see if a computer is like, if you need to tell if it's a human or computer, was even before that. So like this concept has been around for a long time. I think it became ubiquitous and accessible in the last like couple of years. And that's, I think, why people are seeing it more, because it's gotten more easy to access for the average person. Like you can sign up for an OpenAI account and start spinning up bots and chat bots and that ChatGPT based bots, that kind of a thing.
So there was an article a couple weeks ago that really has stayed front of mind for me as somebody who goes in for the W-2 job to go in and help teachers design curricula that's going to be future facing, that's going to prepare students for college and careers and stuff. It's an article about a teacher saying that they would not allow artificial intelligence, AI, into their classroom. And so the article has a number of, reasons why this person perceived that that was a rational decision. But what do educators, and this is kind of like our opening episode, what do educators, what might they need to know about both the pros and cons, kind of in a general sense, of artificial intelligence in your classroom. Like, for example, could you run your classroom without interfacing with a tool that is using artificial intelligence, for example?
It would be really hard. I mean, I guess it depends on what you're saying by interface. Like, if you're trying to isolate the students from using it, you might be able to isolate them from using it, like, during your classroom time. But if they have access to any computer, phone outside of your classroom, I don't see how you could prevent that. Because there are a lot of places that it's already built into the product. So like I mentioned earlier, so like Google, right? Google Docs, Google Sheets, that has machine learning and artificial intelligence built in. Pages, ooh, yeah, I think Pages has that as well. Microsoft Word definitely does. Um, Teams, there's all kinds of places where even like on Windows machines generally now, there's that like AI assistant, the Copilot. In Bing, the search engine has it. Google Search has it. Chrome, the browser has it. So if you're on a
Mm.
Chromebook, it's everywhere. Like there is no way to like completely isolate from it. Um, at this point, it's like glitter. There's no, you're always gonna find some. Like no matter how hard you try to like scrub it from existence or isolate someone from using it, it's gonna be next to impossible to fully isolate someone from using it. And what was
So,
your other question?
if a student is using a Chromebook, we're going to, by definition, almost, they're going to be utilizing AI in some kind of way, shape, or form. Yeah.
Yeah, Google now has when you do a Google search, unless you're having them use DuckDuckGo maybe. But somehow I don't think teachers are like, and I haven't used DuckDuckGo in a minute, so maybe it's built into DuckDuckGo too.
DuckDuckGo is my default browser, and there are some machine learning tricks inside that as well. So
Yeah.
um,
So yeah, like a Google search, it gives you a little AI generated like summary or what it thinks the response you're looking for is. Um yeah.
and so, given that there's a ubiquity to AI at this particular point, what are some baseline questions I guess an educator might ask themselves as they're having kids navigate things? What are some just basic tips and pointers as they navigate this particular situation?
I would practice auditing what you're given. So
Okay.
I think there's still very much a need for the ability to like know where the information is coming from. So my favorite types of tools that do use AI tell you where it's getting its information from. So it'll give you like a little footnote or something to say, hey, I'm pulling this from this website.
Mm.
And I would highly recommend getting into the practice of one, looking for tools that do provide very clearly upfront, this is where this information is being pulled from. Two, getting into the practice of going to see, okay, is the information that's there, first of all, is the website one that is, reliable, valid, all the basic information we've been practicing for years about how to validate and make sure the information you're getting is truthful and accurate. Uh, Go to that web, make sure that website is valid and reliable. Go to that website and make sure what's written on that website is what the AI is producing for you, because sometimes it will take bits and pieces and reconstruct them in a way that isn't telling the truth or isn't accurate. And then searching widely, so making sure you find other resources that can fact check what's being spit out to you. Because also I've seen it where AI will take an article that was written by another AI that is not true and then recycle and spit out some remixed version of that article that was already not based on fact. So you
Mm.
have to make sure it's not one of those like garbage in, garbage out kind of things.
Well, I mean, and I think to your point, one of the things that I try to counsel teachers I work with about is stick to the mundanities, right? stick to the things that are going to be rudiments that AI would be able to produce relatively simply, right? Like I generally still have, I still encourage people to have processes that are either analog or through digital pathways that you are mining yourself. So if you're talking about getting research, I'm still teaching students how to research XYZ with a book or this website, or you go .gov or whatever. Great, we have this information, we know these things to be true. Now let's run it through Perplexity or wherever we're going to deal with, and see how what we know to be true lines up with the thing that it actually duplicates. Or the reason why I'm going to Perplexity is to check my grammar, to ensure my sentence structures are consistent, things like that, that are a lot more in the wheelhouse of what I could expect the output to be in terms of being accurate from that particular program. But I think that's one of the things, at least what I read into that particular article, was many teachers are interpreting this age of AI as a all or nothing situation, rather than saying, how is this in Ethan Mullick? If you're not following Ethan Mullick on social media, he's ETHANMOLLICK, very, very astute thinker on this particular subject, professor at Wharton School of Business at University of Pennsylvania, just wrote a book called Co-Intelligence, in which he talks about AI in education. Really, really, really great book. Take my highest, because my highest recommendations as a read. But people are looking at this as a zero-sum game, rather than saying, how do we teach kids the processes by which to be co-intelligent with AI, machine learning, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that's important to, as one considers utilizing products that have AI in them, that students are giving processes to make sense of, here's the output from the AI. How can I backtrack and reverse engineer what this thing produced, so that I can ensure the accuracy of that thing? I think that's kind of to your point. So excellent. Next question. The other, the South Park question, right? They're coming for our jobs, right? They're coming for our jobs, right? Is AI like this people killer that's going to suddenly subvert all human existence, and we're going to be sitting in our rooms not doing anything, and AI is going to run the world? Like, how do you see, or how would you answer that particular question?
I mean, I wouldn't, I think it's wise for anyone to keep abreast of like what's going on, like to keep tabs on sort of the development of things. And also I think there is a little bit of like panic and fear mongering. For example, I was working on a Power Automate like workflow the other day. It threw an error because the value that was returned wasn't correct. Like it was wrong, which okay, so I need to figure out what the correct value is. And Copilot was helping me by saying the value that was returned is incorrect. You should research what the correct values accepted are. Like, yeah, I know. Like, I didn't need your help with that. Or the example I gave earlier where I was working on that Copilot bot, and because it kept trying to like predict what people were saying, it would make the bot just crash and get stuck in loops and stuff. So there, and you see things like the weird hands when it comes to like image creation and stuff like that. So there are definitely still areas where it needs a lot of help. Like sometimes when Copilot, like GitHub Copilot does code generation, it'll create code that just like doesn't work. But I think there are some jobs that are threatened more immediately by it. So like for example, social media creation, there's a lot of tools built into like Canva where you can just generate probably not marketing content that's as good as if a human had put their thought and creativity into it.
Mm-hmm.
But for some businesses, it's acceptable enough that they would let go of their marketing person and just have somebody generate AI created Canva content. So I think that it's not a total, I think it's very nuanced. It's not completely that everyone's job is suddenly threatened. There are some jobs that are threatened. I think the more complex jobs, it's not quite there yet. Like, as if I'm thinking about my job as if I were a software developer, right now it's more this is a tool that can help me in some situations versus it's going to replace me. I think that the same would apply to like education. This is a tool that could help me in some situations. It's not anywhere near to where it could replace me.
Mm.
Um, so it'll be interesting to see how that evolves over time. And yeah, to your point, Sylvia, like the same argument has been made time and time again anytime a new technology comes up, that like, oh my gosh, we're never going to be able to do anything, like our jobs are going to be stolen, it's the end of times and whatever. And really that's not the case. It's a lot more nuanced than that. It's a lot there's a lot more to it than just it's it's suddenly going to replace everybody.
Yeah, and I think again, there's been a number of folks who have made the comment I'm about to make. Right, AI isn't going to replace you. A person using AI better than you is probably going to replace you. Right, this person who understands how the bots can make their work performance a lot more, a lot easier, and make a more productive person, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's why I think that the articles like the one that I mentioned before, in which teachers saying they're not going to use AI in their classroom at all, kind of it rather than help the student develop the basic skills the way that which was essentially the thesis of that particular article, it's actually harming that person because again, not having the opportunity to see how to integrate these tools into the process of creating a product is actually going to hamstring you going forward. Because when you hit, and this is a person who teaches high school, right? So this is a high school student who's not being prepared to take on the tools that they are very close to being expected to use. All right, so that's kind of it's a very interesting situation to me that we make kind of very broad statements like that as educators and say we're not going to do certain things without, I think, really understanding what the ramifications of those particular statements and those particular things are, given that, I mean, in your job right now, how do you use bots in order to help your mental health and increase your productivity?
Yeah. Real quick before I answer that though, one of the things I thought about was part of what got me into tech and made me a tech forward teacher is that I had the opportunity to be exposed to computers like when they were still relatively new. Like our library when I was in upper elementary school had an Apple IIe. We got to go to the computer lab and play, Oregon Trail. And when I was in middle school, one of the options was to take a computers class, and I learned HTML and CSS. And if my teacher, I was just thinking about like if my teacher had said, nope, paper, pencil, notebooks, that's all you get to use, it would have drastically changed the trajectory of my adult life to
Absolutely.
not be exposed to those things. And so it's interesting to take the perspective of uh like I'm just gonna not give students access to this tool. As far as how I use it in my day to day, when it comes to, so I do actually have one task that one of the bots I built at work uses, and that's it searches our like public facing website to be able to return basic information. Because I think one of the other realities is we increasingly reliant on software and complex systems. So in order to know kind of all the bits and pieces of those complex systems, it's very difficult for a human to do.
Mm.
So one of the things that is incredibly helpful is being able to use AI and machine learning to leave it. Sorry, dog things. um, to be able to uh, bring up ideas that you may not have thought about. So be able to search like a big amount of space and in areas that you may not have thought to search in order to bring ideas together. Sometimes I'll use it to like rubber duck. I'll just ask like, hey, give me, how would you format this type of a letter? Or what are ways you could say this particular type of message? So being able to make sure that I'm adjusting my tone and writing in such a way that like um I'm being considerate and thoughtful of the people that I'm talking to, which is not to say that like, oh, I would be incredibly like mean or rude or crass or something, but like sometimes
Mm.
it just helps to be able to see that reflected back and read it from someone else's perspective, and it gives me that opportunity without having to like go to a coworker and say, hey, read this, because sometimes you just want that like sort of mirror back to you. It's built into a lot of tools I already use, like Word and Teams and stuff like that. So when it offers me suggestions for wording, sometimes I'll take it. Like, yeah, that is what I was going to say. So it saves me a few seconds here and there. I use a lot of automations that are not necessarily AI or machine learning. But I think speaking to the broader idea of embracing that technology in order to free yourself of time and be able to focus instead on the things that I'm best at, which is being creative, grabbing things from different areas and mishmashing them together in unexpected ways. Because one of the faults I see in machine learning and AI is it tends to be very saltine, for lack of a better word. Like there's not a lot of flavor there. It's not like they don't offer you something interesting or different. It's very bland, it's very basic, it's very, I'm following the same script that I've seen millions of times across the internet. So if you're looking for something creative, like that's probably not where it's at. But yeah, so those are some of the ways that I use it.
I think it is very creative. I think its level of creativity matches your level of creativity, right? So if so I was doing a project not too long ago, and actually I lied. I was doing this very project, so I was like, okay, cool. Allen Iverson, artificial intelligence. I had everything kind of scripted out and built the way I wanted it to be built, and then I went to Anthropic and said, look, this is pretty much what I want to do. I want you to look at why this wouldn't work. It went through it and said, first of all, it's a very creative idea. Da, 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 da. Cool. I brought the creativity, and I think that's the thing that when we start talking about education, if you are someone who is, when you allow your students to be creative, to be the authentic version of themselves and bring that to the device and demonstrate to them, again, the process of, here's me being my creative self, here's my idea. What I need is a constant source of feedback to what you just said, Webb, of this mirroring of, I'm kicking something, you tell me why that works or it doesn't work. Great. If you were to do that with another person, that person might get tired or that person might be disinterested or whatever. But the cool
not
thing
available.
Not available, right? But the cool thing about the AI, it's there.
I'm not going to bounce ideas back to you at 2 a.m. when you're actually doing it, because I will be asleep.
So, I mean, so it gives you a sounding board that is always available. But you are, as the progenitor of the idea, you are always in control of that particular conversation and say, I like that nugget you just gave me. I think that's really good. This over here, that's really not something I'm interested in. I can integrate those things into the idea. But I think the problem is we do not have, first of all, teaching is a very difficult job. Lots of long hours, lots of stress, etc. So you're not sitting on the internet reading people who are on the fringes of these concepts saying this is the best way to do it. And so lots of the conversations I've had with educators around AI have not been because, oh my goodness, they are just like the worst humans in the world. It's because they're just uninformed about, hey, these are ways you can integrate these things into your practice in a human facing way. And I think that's also by the nature of the job causes people not to have the energy to really be on the forefront of a lot of the technical, especially when we talk about technology, some of the technological advancements that they should be taking advantage of. Go ahead, Webbs.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, probably a year or so ago, I was back visiting my parents, and I had my mom open ChatGPT and just mess around with sending it questions. And I think prior to that, they didn't really have any concept of what ChatGPT was or what AI was. But even just that little interaction of because I don't know if it still does this, but at the time, you didn't even have to log in. You could just ask it questions. And I think just that was enough of an interaction, oh, I get this now. This is now tangible. And I would be curious, because I don't know. I would be curious how many teachers don't like the idea of it because they've never had an opportunity to just use it and to see what it's like, and use it with an understanding of kind of like that basic definition I gave at the beginning, where it's like, oh, okay, I get what it's doing. I'm telling it a thing. I'm telling it, yes, that works, or no, that doesn't. And it's like basing its future answers on what I've told it about, yes, that works, no, that doesn't.
Well, or the fact that the GPTs are not the only AI tools out there, right? I think a lot when we start talking about stuff, people, oh, ChatGPT. No, I'm not talking about ChatGPT. I'm talking about this tool. That's the tool. The tool we're going to actually walk people through tonight is not a ChatGPT tool. It's a tool that has nothing to do with ChatGPT, or maybe built on top of OpenAI's software. But people are taking that basic concept and spinning them up into tools that do jobs and work in a lot better way than what OpenAI just like rolled out, right? So it's kind of and you tell me if this is wrong. OpenAI and ChatGPT, that's all open. As long as you can take that API and do what you need to do, as long as you have a paying, if you don't have a paying account, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
So you can build tools on top of the existing technology because of the expense of trying to build your own LLM. I think when it first popped off, I believe I called Webs, was like, hey, yo, how much would it cost to build your own LLM? And she was like, that's not an option for us, bro. Yeah. And so,
LLM, by the way, for anyone who's listening and doesn't know, it's a large language model. And it's just one of the ways that you can use AI is through things like natural language processing. So being able to determine, like it's built into Zoom now too. And I want to say, I wouldn't be surprised if, I haven't used Google Meet in a while, but I wouldn't be surprised if that also has something similar. Yeah. But like when it tells you like this percentage of the time is how much each person talked, and this is what your emotions are, and that's all based on a large language model and natural language processing.
All right, so let's get to how you might utilize a AI tool into your classroom tomorrow. And so, Webs, where is, if you were a human in search of answers to your wildest questions, what are some places you might go on the internet?
Depends what kind of questions. Like, are we talking about like
you need to make a souffle?
Oh, I need to make a souffle. Where would I go if I needed how to make a souffle? I'd Google it first.
Okay.
And then maybe like I have a couple cooking channels I watch on YouTube. I might go there. TikTok has also become kind of a place I go quite often to find answers to things. Those would probably be my top 3.
So TikTok, YouTube, those are essentially default video search engines, right? Hey, somebody.
Especially if I'm trying to learn to do something I don't know how to do. Like, I know how to cook a souffle, but like if it was something like the number of times that I've had to go to YouTube for home repair things, where it's like, how do I install a sink thing? How do I, fix a clog in my kitchen sink drain? Like home repair things, 100% YouTube.
So YouTube is a.
Will you switch to you real quick? Because I gotta go let the dogs out.
Well, of course.
Thank you.
So when we start to talk about finding information, learning how to use information, etc., YouTube is a place where we do that often. And in classrooms, YouTube is extremely important. Lots of teachers use YouTube. Lots of teachers are utilizing video for instruction, etc., etc. And so being able to use YouTube in a way with AI to allow students to look at a YouTube video in a different way is super important, and also something that could be very helpful in your classroom. So we're going to actually roll with that. Let's do that here. All right, cool. So here's YouTube, and I love teaching kids or allowing kids to build video games. And so here's Bloxels is the tool that we utilized all last school year. We had some kids build things, build the characters, etc., etc. And so the interesting thing about Bloxels, and I'm just going to take this video here. So this is creating characters. Now, if you notice in the bottom right-hand corner or left-hand corner here, that's a 6 minute and 25 second video. Now, if you are an individual who wants to skip to a certain part of the video, some creators give you those, look titles and pieces. But if I'm like, I don't need to hear any exposition, I have a very specific problem that I want this video to be able to solve, and I don't feel like watching 6 minutes and 25 seconds because I've got 3 minutes of patience at this particular point. I really want to know what is the important.
Team watch it at 2x. Team watch it at 2x.
I can't do the 2x joint. I cannot do the super high speed thing. I mean, you're a Flash fan as well, so I guess that's another thing. But yeah, the double speed thing.
I put that together, but that's a good point.
Yeah, the double speed thing I can't do. So how might we go and make this video a little bit more accessible to everyone in the classroom? But also, if we're teaching, we also want students to be very much into, we've got ELA standards that are there. We've got vocabulary words that a kid might be, we might want to make sure students have the ability to deal with. We also have videos on YouTube webs that have very interesting problems. For example, if you hit the closed caption on lots of Bloxels videos, it's closed captioned in Japanese, not in English. So
that's interesting.
Suddenly, I cannot have my EL friends look at the closed captions in order to give them another structure in order to understand the video. Because, for example, again, Bloxels, a lot of them are in Japanese. So let's see if this one's actually in Japanese.
And so I'm just going to lay down shapes and see.
See how that's in Japanese? So,
I do.
Suddenly,
you can't like right click it and change the language or anything.
You can't. I emailed them, was like, look, fam, I need this in English, and like no response. So cool, whatever. All right. So this is what happened on most of the videos. So I was like, all right, my God, how am I gonna do? So I had to run this through a couple other programs in order to get the English closed captions. But I've got a solution for you for not only this video, but all other YouTube videos that you utilize. So again,
which, by the way, I just want to say, if there's a reason to follow us, it's that Mike will do some of your work for you, and it just you won't have as many things to do.
This is also true. So the one of the things that's really interesting about YouTube videos is people use tools like Edpuzzle, for example, right? That goes in.
Ooh, I know a lot of teachers who love Edpuzzle.
The Edpuzzle is cool. It's a solid tool, but lots of work on the back end with Edpuzzle. I'd be interested to see how Edpuzzle is using AI, though. I haven't logged into Edpuzzle in a while, but Edpuzzle could put questions and all that kind of stuff inside there. But I just put the quick and dirty here. I don't need to go and have this doesn't need to be a lesson that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the YouTube link here, and I'm going to go to Stepify. And Stepify is really cool because it makes the video a step-by-step tutorial. So I go to step 1, step 2, step 3. All right. And this is totally free. I haven't logged in anything. I'm going to paste that inside there and submit. Uh-oh. Maybe I'm lying.
That's the rule of a demo, is when you're doing a demo.
It's always something, isn't it? Let's see.
Ooh. It is possible that they're down currently, because internal server error usually indicates it's something on
their side.
On their side, yeah.
Let's see. Let's do this. Let's see if this will work. All right, cool. Don't want to do that one. Let's do this.
How do you learn from?
Let's see if it's me. If not, we're gonna click on one of their videos anymore. I just did this 2 hours ago. Yeah, I just did this 2 hours ago. Let's see if they got anything good. That's teacher-wise.
I will also try it just so we can confirm if it's them or not.
What kind of stink?
Oh, it's you. It worked fine for me.
All right, cool. So what could it be?
Clear your cache.
Oh.
So here we go. You can also have an impromptu, how do I troubleshoot this issue type situation, which I haven't had to clear cache on Arc before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. Let me clear my cache real quick, and then we'll be.
Oh, you can just search the help menu and it'll take you right there.
All right, cool.
You search the help menu for clear cache, it'll give you clear cache and refresh.
Yeah.
If you clear everything, it may sign you out of everything. I don't know if it'll boot you from this. That might be bad.
Not because I'm not going through the.
You should be able to target that specific website too.
Nope. Still didn't do it. Clear cache and refresh. Okay. All right. Let's see if this works. While I'm doing that, let's do it this way.
Alternatively, I could share my screen.
That would work, actually. Actually, it wouldn't work because I don't have that set up.
Oh, okay.
So let me not do that. I'm going to quit this. Give me a second.
Can I share a link with you?
Absolutely, you could share a link with me.
Okay, so maybe if I share my link, will it work? Let's give it a try. Okay, put it in the guest chat.
Let's see what happens here. I see it.
We're riffing, people. We're riffing.
Exactly. That's what's up. But that Stepify site. First, continue.
I just realized burners may not have been the best choice for this.
What? It's a little spicy, is it not?
Yes. Although I got hibiscus ginger beer, a little over a month ago. You want to talk spicy? Whew. That stuff will.
Delicious though.
It is on par. It actually kind of reminds me a little bit of black cherry burners because it will make you cough. But
how do you learn from what you read? In this video,
I just the hibiscus ginger beer was intense. It was very peppery.
That's how you know it's good, though.
I suppose.
Oh, yeah. All right, cool. I think we're good. Let's try it now. I think we're good. All right, cool. So Stepify.net, we know it works. So
yeah, because mine was fine.
Yeah, it works. So I'm just gonna use your link, Webs.
That works.
All right, so
it is very easy to share.
Having kids build stuff is great. I'm gonna take this creating characters thing. Wonderful. And the cool thing about Stepify, if we can get it to work, bada bing, it looks like it's gonna work. Cool. Is that it's going to analyze that video and it's going to break it down into steps. All right. And again, to the point that Webb's kind of made before, and I've kind of reiterated, process. The human is still important and the human needs to be in control of the process. All right. So at any time, I can watch the YouTube video myself. So I can see if this is totally making up a bunch of baloney if I need to. But what I really love about this is, first, it gives me the option again to watch it on YouTube. So I haven't stolen anything. I've been creating a different video. YouTube is there. It tells me it's going to be 2 minutes to read this entire thing. Awesome. If I'm a fourth grader, I'm like, hey, my attention span is about 90 seconds. 2 minutes fits. We can do 2 minutes. I'll give you actually 30 seconds. We'll be good. All right. It also gives you a topic here to watch on YouTube in that 2 minutes. Gives you a table of contents. So if I'm looking for a particular thing, design your character, it's going to take me directly to that particular place. So I can read this step by step. So whether you're making a souffle, you're learning how to go fix your garbage, your garbage can situation, or what's your dryer, going in and fixing the dryer thing so the lint falls out or whatever. Those things can now be operationalized in the steps. You can kind of do a checklist here, which I think is also great for classrooms. Did you access the Bloxels app? Did you start a new project? Did you start design your content? Did you add animation frames? Really gives you that checklist there. And again, that video is there. Now, this gets even better. So I've got the this YouTube here. I would not, from now on, if I'm an educator, I'm not putting naked YouTube videos, and I don't mean naked as in nude people, but naked videos and the video by themselves into any of my instruction for students to watch. I would use a tool like Stepify. There's a lot of other tools in which you can go and use AI in order to make the video a little bit more palatable for your learners. But the thing I like about Stepify is I can copy that link. That is the link to this Stepify. It will always exist, or it has always existed in my, like, now 4 weeks playing with these tools. So I'm going to copy this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my iframe generator and say, yo. And for those who are new to our channel, iframe generators are one of my favorite tools because they give me an embed code. They do not work for every website on the internet, but for those that they do work, getting them into tools like Canvas or any tool that allows you to embed things just makes it a lot easier for your young people to access it. Webbs, why is embedding such a great thing to utilize?
Because then you're not having, you're not causing users to have split attention effect. So you're not making them navigate between multiple tabs or navigate between multiple windows. They can stay right where they are, and you're reducing that extraneous cognitive load, so that they can focus on the task of learning instead of expending energy trying to navigate where information is. I was also going to add that something interesting about the way that Stepify is set up. So over the summer, I'm working on a PhD in learning science, and over the summer, a class that I took was teaching computer applications. One of the things we did was we had to analyze different products, and based on a bunch of different criteria for best practices when it comes to teaching applications. And one of the things that this presents well, I think, is it gives you a lot of metadata, like it takes this many minutes to read it. It's combining both visual and text, which is also fantastic. In terms of universal design for learning, like a lot of the things you point out fall under that. So it's not only, a lot of that I assume is not only your background in formal education, also what you've recognized in your several decades in the classroom. And also on top of that, I can say that from research, like these are good practices to have. Like having each of the steps and then sub goals to get to those steps also makes the information a lot more digestible for the learner.
Absolutely. And so again, I want that YouTube video to now have that data in that form for young people to navigate, rather than I just watch the YouTube video, right? And so I'm gonna go ahead and hit this preview button. When I hit that preview, bada bang. So now I've got the HTML text necessary to go ahead and rock and roll with that. That's cool. Let's generate that embed code. I'm gonna copy that. And again, we deal with Canvas because Canvas is the learning management system for the state of Nevada, but tons of colleges use it. It has, I believe, a 25% market share in terms of learning management systems in the country. And so there is a very high likelihood that whether you're in a middle school class, high school class, or taking your freshman English course, that teacher might be utilizing Canvas in order to get that information to you. And so I'm gonna go ahead and edit this. There's a number of ways to get this into our on our page. First is that cloud, which is the embed code there, or we can do the raw HTML editor as well. So both of those allow us to do that. Doesn't matter. Throw that inside there.
And those aren't features that are unique to Canvas. Like there are other learning management systems that have those same tools, the ability to embed things. So if you're not using Canvas, you should be able to still be able to embed things. You just have to find where it is in your LMS.
Absolutely. And so then we have that page now embedded. So our learners do not need to go to YouTube now. They can go and watch it, read this, and then go at their own pace through the steps. Again, as somebody who is, very much impatient sometimes, I don't want to watch the 25-minute video. I want the quick and dirty. I'm simply looking for how to do this particular step using this particular tool. I don't want to hear exposition. I don't want to hear the other things. This really has cut down on my time as I go through YouTube trying to figure out how do I do XYZ in Photoshop or Illustrator, or how my very small little kernels of information. Stepify is going to help me get to that information a lot easier than having to go and skim through a long form video. And so Stepify, for educators out there, definitely an AI enhanced tool that if you're using YouTube in any way, shape, or form, it's one that I would integrate into my practice. It does not cost you anything. At no point did I go and put in my login or anything like that. It's really cool. The other thing is to utilize this in the hands of your learners. Your learners are on YouTube. They are watching Mr. Beast do insane things, and Sniper Wolf do video game stuff and whatnot. How else could your learners, as they're going and researching the inventors they need to think about, or the War of 1812 or whatever, they find some Smithsonian produced video on YouTube, how might they go and take that, throw it inside of a tool like Stepify rather, and then see the different chapters of that particular topic to make it a lot more digestible for them. Any other ideas on that, Webbs?
Yeah, I would say also this would be a great tool in terms of teaching particularly neurodivergent learners to have tools at their fingertips to help them process information. So like I've seen increasingly in the professional world, like that we're trying to find ways to meet people where they are and make sure people have the tools to be successful regardless. And so this would I could see this being something where like if you are given a training video and you need to make it more accessible for you, if you're trying to learn about something at work and you need to make it more accessible for you, then this would be a really good way to do that meets the needs of neurodivergent learners as well.
Absolutely.
And as also like being able to take that, because the whole problem we talked about early on, right, was that it was only giving you your closed captioning in Japanese. So this gives you that text to go along with the video, so that if it's easier for someone to digest text, then they can do that. And they have also for English language learners, like being able to see that text and see that vocabulary and pair it with hearing the vocabulary. Because also now I imagine now that you have the text, if you have a text to speech tool built in, you'd be able to then have it read that text out to you as well.
Absolutely, because the text to speech tool that's now built in to Canvas wouldn't work for this, because it's not text that it was written inside of Canvas. But most of the Chromebooks that I work with, if you go into the assistive tools on your Chromebook, it'll give you that ability to turn those things on if they're not on as already. And so actually, that's a great idea. I think a lot when we did did the video game unit or lessons with the young people last year, we had a number of EL students in that classroom, and having to get in the closed captioning for them to look out for certain words, be able to define those words in their home language, and then define those words in English as well, really gave them almost a Rosetta Stone to be able to go one-to-one transfer and say, I'm doing this thing, I need characters, this is what a character is in my language, this is what a character is in Bloxels. So when they had conversations with English, people who had English was their first language, it was a lot easier for them to understand what was going on, because they had a shared vocabulary in terms of the other things they were trying to accomplish. So absolutely, positively. But Stepify, we're not talking about GTPs, we're not talking about people cheating on the essay, we're not talking about the kids getting help with. It's just a tool that helps me learn something in a way that's going to be a lot more accessible to anyone, be they neurodivergent or not. Go ahead, Webb.
Also, talk about like being able to get a lot for a little. You just pasted your YouTube video in there, it spit out a whole website page that has all this additional metadata that can be really helpful, and then it's copy paste it into the iframe if you want to, copy paste it into Canvas. Like in 3 steps, you now have this much more rich experience for your students, and you didn't have to type all that up, you didn't have to write all that out. All you had to do was copy paste a couple times, and voila, it's more universal design for learning. You can talk to your administrator about, here's how I'm meeting the needs of my students, without having to spend a bunch of extra time on it.
Absolutely. And I've watched that video before, but I didn't have to watch the video again in order for this thing to be produced. So that's the other thing that I think is really interesting about these particular tools is having students put the tool to the test. hey, I'm going to watch the video and then I'm going to go and I'm going to assess how accurate were those steps. Great. So I'm going to spend the 6 minutes that's necessary and be able to compare and contrast. Cool. Would you have, as a human, would those be the steps that you chose? Why would those be the steps you chose? Why wouldn't they be the steps that you chose? Would you have added extra information? Would you have taken information away? Having the kid being able, or having the user being able to make sense of that as well. Again, that process puts the human in the forefront again, right? As the person, I am still I am still in control. I think that's one of the things that is kind of makes educators kind of puts them on the edge of teetering over. Is, are we eliminating the human? Absolutely not. But we have to be able to put the structures in place so that we're having the conversations with the young people as we're using the tools, so they realize that I am the most integral part of this entire process, not an afterthought.
I think also going back to the article you mentioned where it was like, I'm just going to eliminate all of this from my classroom, it doesn't help with being able to distinguish when you've encountered a tool that uses AI, if it's giving you the right information. And I think you also mentioned like it's the idea is like, oh, back to basics, you want them to have the basic skills. Yes, and so how might we go about getting them the core basic skills and alongside giving them the media literacy to be able to tell when they've encountered a tool that has AI and whether or not they should trust it?
Absolutely. And I think that's the opportunity that's missed, right? Let's pretend let's pretend these tools don't exist, because I want you to learn in a world in which they don't exist. But then when I get out in the world, I've got no schema for actually reconciling with the tools that I'm being asked now to use. And one would assume when, a lot of these young people start getting jobs, like that will be a question that you're asking in an interview. Like how might you be more productive than, if you have to hand make and hand create everything, that process is probably not going to be one that's accepted as universally as it might be right now. And so, we got through a lot today. We talked a little bit about, again, what the definition of artificial intelligence was. Webbs gave you some examples of how you might, understand that concept. I really think the numbers thing was really made it very, very real to me what's going on there. But we also, again, that tool that we just used, Stepify. We Stepified we had a little technical issue, but without that literally took me finding a YouTube video that was relevant to my coursework, or again, it doesn't have to be coursework. I just want to learn how to make a better souffle, or how to prune my tomato plants, or whatever it is. But I don't want to watch a 30-minute video. I want these step-by-steps, and then I can jump to those particular steps inside the video and rock and roll. The only thing that I think would be missing from Stepify, in my opinion, is, could you put a timestamp for each of those steps on the video that I can go directly to that particular part of the video to say, okay, cool, this is step 3, design character. I want to go directly to that step and watch that. That would be the only thing I would suggest as the next iteration of a particular tool. But
does it allow multiple language output? So could I output those steps in Spanish?
I don't know. I'd
like that.
But that is one thing that, given now that I've kind of thought about it, is something I will email those so this is the other thing that is, as you're starting to play around with tools on the internet, generally everyone wants to get better. There's that feedback button in the top right hand corner. And so again, you come up with some idea, something to make the tool better, shoot the idea to those creators so that everyone benefits from your particular perspective. Because again, I think both of the second language, I think that this is actually I want to say it's an Asian company that pulls this. So I'm assuming that there is some second language output, different language output there, but I could be wrong. But that feedback tool there, really, if you've got a perspective that you think needs to be heard in this particular realm, do not hesitate to do it. I was working with some young people on Friday, and that was one of the things that I really encouraged them to do. as they started to use Adobe Creative Cloud Express to build things. And one of the young ladies had a difficulty as feedback that they need to know. From your perspective, this is something that's very important. Whether they listen to that feedback or not is up to them, but they can't say that they hadn't received that feedback from you. All right, so awesome. We are off for the next 2 weeks, but we will be back in living color, and hopefully you enjoyed our very first foray into this particular concept.
What else are we going to talk about, Mike?
We're going to talk about all kind of nutty things, Webb. So we're going to get into privacy. We're going to get into how might we, what processes for integrating AI look like. We're going to get into tools that you can utilize. Every episode will have a tool or concept that you can utilize into your classroom the next day. And we're always going to be joined by our resident software developing genius, Webb, to kind of walk us through.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with genius. That's a little much.
To walk us through kind of the professional applications. School is supposed to prepare you for college and career. We need someone who's in college and career and in the ed tech space as well that can kind of rationalize what the uses of these tools are in the real world to make sure that our students are being prepared for those things.
Also, I realized I probably should have mentioned this well before now, but when I was doing software, I'm not a software developer day to day now, but when I did software development, I mean, I still do code things, but it's not my normal day to day job. I worked on a project that used machine learning, a couple of projects that use machine learning, which is where I'm getting this knowledge from. It's not just I Googled some stuff. I mean, I do Google some stuff, but like I've worked with machine learning before and I've built projects with it and I've taken classes on it. And so like that's probably should have mentioned my credentials like up front, but
I mean, it is what it is.
Here we are.
So we'll deal with next week is practice. And Iverson had a very famous rant about practice that actually is taken out of context. And we'll talk about that as well at the height of the top of that show. We'll talk about practice. So how do we automate things? What are tools that allow us to automate things in the classroom? Teachers are super stressed, super busy. And lots of it can be automated away. So you don't have to deal with some of the mundanities that are there in your classroom. That'll be September the 8th at 4 p.m. It's another Sunday.
Pacific.
And would you say 4
p.m. 4 p.m. Pacific.
Pacific time, yes. Specifically Pacific time. So we hope to see you there. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your cousins, tell your uncles and aunts, tell anybody who has a computer or device that connects to the internet. We'll also be slicing this particular episode up into little smaller bits that we'll shoot out over the next 2 weeks, so people get little tidbits of what we were talking about tonight, and we'll shoot out a little couple PDFs on Stepify and some other tools that kind of do the same thing. Excellent. Thank you, Sylvia Lang. I know that you had you're not affiliated with this program in any way, shape, or form. This is the first time we've met you. Thank you so much for being part of our show this evening, and hopefully you'll be back for future episodes. Indeed. Have a great night, everybody. We'll catch you later.
Thanks, y'all.